Welcome everyone to our episode 125 of our podcast. Today I have two amazing guests, an honor guest, of course, Jeremias and Soulara Sevier. And we are going to speak about the wisdom of Mother Earth. We are going to relate the information of the chakras, the information that we have inside of ourselves, and also the reflections that we should be making in terms of connecting much better with our Mother Earth, our home, and to take care more of our energy. So, first, I will introduce Soulara. Soulara, thank you for being here. She is a Reiki master teacher, oracle, and visionary leader that understands the profound connection between personal growth and the cyclical flow of energy within ourselves and the earth. Her journey as a retired cardiac nurse, healer, and speaker ignited a passion to power high impact leaders to embrace self healing and personal development. Through her online community, Heal, Grow, Inspire, and Lead, Sulara guides these leaders to redefine their enoughness and unlock their highest potential. Sulara's approach is deeply rooted in the concept of chakras, the energy centers within our bodies that mirror the Earth's vibrational field, which we are going to speak today about. And uh, she offers experiences like Usul Reiki training and chakra balancing workshops by integrating practices like intuitive channeling and skin carotenoid testing, which can reflect energetic imbalances. Sulara bridges the gap between the physical and spiritual realms and emphasizes the importance of aligning uh, your personal growth journey, which empower leaders to cultivate the self-awareness and an energetic flow needed to inspire positive change within themselves and the world. And we have another amazing guest, Jeremias. Thank you, Jan, for being here. She's a compassionate health coach and best-selling author of SP Oil, Your Pet, embodies a holistic approach to well-being, drawing from 3 decades of experience and personal health challenges. Jan advocates for an integrative approach rooted in nutrition, movement, yoga, essential oils, and meditation. United in her mission to empower individuals and animals on their path to vibrant health, Jan weaves together a tapestry of holistic practices, believing in the interconnectedness of body, mind, and spirit. Her background in science, her deep understanding of Eastern modalities, and passion for essential oils enrich her approach, allowing her to connect with the chakras, with the earth's vibrational field, and the natural rhythms of the season. Jan guides others in attuning their energy to the cycles of creation. Jan offers also a range of services, including one on one health coaching, essential oil consultations, nutritional consultations, private and group yoga sessions, and meditations, workshops and retreats for individuals and corporations. Her heartfelt companionship transcends mere guidance, offering unwavering support for holistic well-being across species boundaries. Whether online or in person, her wisdom spans continents, touching lives and fostering harmony with all beings. So, as you all can appreciate, we have two eminence in terms of the vibrational fields, in terms of the Reiki energy and the attunement that we should all be embracing more in order to just to live much better, to really live a life that make us joyful and not regretful of the things that we are doing. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Sulara. So To begin this session, we are going to reflect on what is the meaning of chakra. I think that we have to begin with this word and the relationship with our energy for anyone that doesn't know or hasn't been in contact with this spiritual path.
Absolutely, David. When we think about chakras, they really originate many, many, many thousands of years ago. The first mention of the word chakras was in the ancient text, the Vedas. And when we look at the word in Sanskrit and translate it directly, it means wheel or disc. And so it is a moving vortex. It's alive, it's full of vibration and life. And so it's a wheel, and you have traditionally seven that align along the back of the spine, starting at the root or the tailbone and going up into the crown. And when we again look at those chakras a little bit more closely, they're actually connected to organ systems and also nerve bundles. And they represent, and I'll just talk about the main seven, but they represent different aspects of living and thriving, shall I say. So the root chakra, for instance, more for safety and security. When we think about the sacral chakra, creativity, solar plexus is more for empowerment. And we get into the heart space, that's compassion, that's not surprising. We talk about the throat chakra, communication, the third eye chakra, right in between the middle of the eyes, and that is intuition. And then the crown chakra, our connection to spirit. And I did say traditionally we have seven because the research that is coming out now is that there are more than seven and up to 114. So I will pause there just to kind of open that gateway for discussion about chakras.
Okay, that's amazing. And it is just really for me to open my eyes to this kind of wisdom and to understand that this has thousands of years, this kind of information, and we are only getting again in touch with that source energy, let's call it. And we have been disconnected from those chakras, from that information, so much time that nowadays I think that we can find several individuals that just I like to call that surviving instead of living, and it is not the same, of course. Knowing what each of these energy centers does for your body and really can unleash your energy in order to connect with other beings, connect with earth, connect with animals, of course. It's extremely important. So, in the science part, what do you think, Jan, that happens in terms of the chakras? Any chakra that you want to mention and the energy that has, and also how it relates with our wisdom.
Um, Thank you so much, David. I really feel that, we want these chakras or energy centers to be free, to be able to vibrate at a really sort of smooth and consistent way. And whether these be like self-limitations or other circumstances which alter this vibration, I think it does have physiological effects that, for example, the restriction in blood flow or energy flow can cause, I don't know what to say, I want to say dis-ease in an area of the body. And I think of the example I might use is, let's say, the throat chakra, where someone who has an energy blockage in that area might have symptoms such as hoarseness or laryngitis, or even just be able to feel like they don't have the ability to communicate, or maybe something like thyroid issues or other modalities or other like illnesses which are kind of targeted to those areas of the body. and let alone that importance of that on itself. But I think when we look toward, because we're all in this field of like wellness and trying to help people feel their most vibrant and best selves, I think when we look at helping someone, let's say, who has a particular vulnerability in a specific area, to kind of not think about the chakras is actually doing a disservice, because we are energetic beings having an experience on this plane of earth. And that if we only think of healing in that one dimension, which is, let's say, the more medical, traditional medical realm, I don't know if we can really consider that true wellness or true vibrancy.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It
Yes.
gets more into the word of holistic, doesn't it? We think of, as you mentioned, traditionally, if we just deal with the symptoms, by that point, the chakra is more than likely either partially closed or actually blocked when we start having these symptoms. And so when you treat just the symptoms, like a sore throat, or like Jan was mentioning, like a hoarseness or something like that, what's the true meaning behind that on the energetic level? And so I just love how we all are working in this realm of holistic wellness and knowing that there's a root cause for everything. And it all does come down to energy. And you all know my favorite saying is that we are these spiritual beings having a physical experience. And just that gap is there to bridge. We have to bridge that gap and, understanding what's really happening on the energetic level. And it's wonderful to be able to make those connections and to discuss what are some possibilities for what could be happening when we have those blockages or appearances of symptoms, so to speak.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I was just watching today in the morning. I began to watch a documentary about the fascia of the body, which is all of these layers that we have of our body and how it connects, and how yoga also help us to uh, not only have flexibility, but use really everything that we have inside of our articulations and the muscle, because they were talking about what is the purpose of having too much muscle if you cannot use it. What is the purpose of being healthy if you don't really use your body in all the ways that we sometimes don't know? And this is one of the ways that we also are ignorant many times, because also the school systems, they were talking about this, the school systems also instruct children into separate the information of subjects. Let's say, uh, I don't know, they are going to talk about chemistry, they are going to talk about Spanish here in Mexico, or English there in US, and separating the things, and children start to separate the information, and understanding that we are, or we need to address and to consume information in a separate way. And that is not the best option that we have. It would be much better to first instruct children into their own wisdom, their own bodies, that they really master their body in terms of energy, in terms of physicality, and in terms of the functions. Because if we do the exercise of really lowering the information to a degree that they can understand, they understand much better than us, because they don't have any taboos, they don't have any walls, they don't have anything. They are really fertile ground, so
Hmm.
that we can just instruct them and allow them to be the human beings that they can be, and not the version that society wants.
Beautifully said, David. What I thought about was being in school and how we would have, from a physicality standpoint, we would have gym class, and that was separate. Gym, you change your clothes, you put on your shorts or whatever, you're going to gym. But then when gym is over, then you go to science, but you don't put together how you are utilizing the muscles, and you're experiencing science sort of in the gym class. Or in psychology, you are including also movement and flow And so you're absolutely right. From a very young age, we have, these subjects of life basically that have just been separated for us. And then we're graded on those subjects. And, you're right. It's just kind of introduced to us at a very young age. And I don't think, that it actually comes back together until we have some of those awakening moments where we see that reintegration and that wholeness again.
Both of you so beautifully said. And as you were talking, I thought to myself, I just got back from spending 6 days with 9 of my great nieces and nephews, all less than the age of 9. So a lot of little people. And it is amazing to see them play. And I think the other thing we do is we force them to sit for excessive amounts of time
Mm.
when really the amount of energy they have, like just energy, is huge. And asking them to sit in one place is, is cruel in so many ways. Because you watch kids fidget or move because they have that energy, and we don't allow them or give permission to them enough time to actually expend that energy.
Yeah.
And so it's such a disservice. And when I think about how much more impactful, years ago, before in the US, at least, everything was standardized. So now there are certain, classroom things that there are certain tests they have to pass, and therefore certain subjects they have to like kind of teach a certain way. And I look to my friends who were teachers years ago, and my mother was a kindergarten teacher for over 30 years, where when they were going to learn about, let's say, soil, they went out and they dug, or they had a garden, like it was very tactile and very practical, to give them and allow them to an experience. It reminds me of like learning about a recipe versus making something and tasting it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's beautiful. What was coming to mind was back in the day we had field trips. Remember, and it was just, you're right, you go right out into this environment, whatever it was, to experience what that was like. And I don't know that they have field trips now. I'm not sure. But you're right. It's just so many things have changed. David, what do you think?
Yeah. I have a daughter also 9 years old. She's almost 10. And yes, I agree with Jan. The energy that she has is just too much. And I remember myself being in that at that age. And also what you wanted to do, it was more physical
Mm-hmm.
and than intellectual at the beginning of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And trying things out, as also you mentioned, Jan, is extremely important because otherwise, for example, I when I taught biochemistry in college, I taught nutritionists and physicians, and one of the lab practices that I made them do is to go up and down like 4 or 5 times stairs, like I don't know, it was 4 flights of stairs, more or less, 4 floors of stairs. And after that kind of exercise and a little bit more or less 15 minutes or 10 minutes of exercise, I uh, give them the opportunity to have a sample of urine and a sample of blood. In both cases, we analyzed the blood and the pH of the blood and the pH of the urine, and we saw the different kind of things that happen, and also the nutrition that they had the night before. I tried to make it more in the percentage of proteins or in the percentage of um, carbohydrates, and depending on that, we saw different results also. So depending on what you have for dinner last night, on the previous night, your urine and your blood pH, it's going to change also. So relating to that information, it was for them really, let's say the words that they use, cool. It was they understood they understood the relationship of the body, the relationship that we have just by doing 10 minutes of exercise. Just by doing that, you change everything in your biochemistry, you change everything in your energy patterns, and you feel different. And when I explain after the results, and they made the graphic, and they analyzed the practice, and they did a discussion and all of those things that they have to do, well, it was completely different than just following a script of
Mm.
something that they are just doing there in the lab, but not knowing what is the purpose.
Mhm. That's a wonderful experiment, and it's exciting that they were excited about seeing those results, and that's what I believe is needed. Just more of that relatability of seeing that this, energetic, connection that we have, that each of us have, along with what's happening on the inside of our bodies, and seeing how it's related. I think really helps, with the generations that are coming up, as well as ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, how do people can align themselves with the seasons of the earth, with the chakras, with what they represent in terms of these vibrations that each of the chakra has, and if there is a connection with the seasons, what is that connection?
Beautiful. Well, I'll start with a quote that some of us may be familiar with. It's one of my favorites. It's by Hermes Trismegistus, and he was just such an enormous figure with his wisdom. He's the author of the Hermetica, and his quote is, "As within, so without, as above, so below, and as the universe, so the soul." And for me, this gives credence to everything being connected. And with that interconnection, having an awareness of what is happening on either of those connection points, such as the earth and ourselves, being in tune with that and what to do if there's something that falls out of alignment. And so, more specifically, when we think about the earth and how to align with her, I think in terms of our senses, our five senses, such as sight, being aware of the changing of light and colors as we move from different seasons, from the summer into this, fall and into winter, just being aware of what's happening, using our visual acuity for that. And then there's sound. The beautiful part about spring is hearing the birds chirping and, just certain animals that are awakening and moving into summer. And then how that differs when we get into the fall and winter. And so it's paying attention to what's happening around us with our sound. And then there's the obvious smell. I love driving down the street and having my window down during the spring and summer months and smelling jasmine. There's nothing like the smell of jasmine when you're driving along and there's nothing. And then all of a sudden it's like, what is that? And so it's smell is also something that's very important to take note of. And then we get into taste. Jen and I talk about this a lot when we speak in terms of seasons and how to eat seasonably. So, what you may have in the summer or spring might be a different palate that the earth offers in your particular region in the fall and in the winter. So being aware of that and, maybe having that awareness of what's actually happening in your own physical body and why you may need something that is more dense in the winter versus something that is more full of water, like a melon or a water-based fruit, in the summer or spring. And then the last is touch, the textures of the seasons, and thinking about warmth and in the summer and how the flower petals feel in your hand in those warmer months, for example, versus the fall and winter when our leaves are sort of crispy. There's a crisp in the air even. And then just having that awareness that times are changing, the winds are bringing in, ushering in the new seasons. And so as we pay attention to that, we might think about movements and physicalities may change. You may have more of an in-depth movement during certain points of the season versus other parts of the year, like planting, harvesting, and then celebrations, which we each culturally have different ways that we can embrace and embody the changing seasons.
Yeah. What do you think, Jan, about the seasons and the chakras?
Oh, I totally agree with Solara and the fact that so much of it is awareness and awareness of your surroundings and where you live I also love to look back. So when we think about origin of where we're from and what historically we were, many of us are not born in the place that we live, or our families, like our lineage is not from that. And actually thinking about that, when you kind of think about your tendencies or your likes and dislikes and taking that into consideration, because I think that goes back to, evolution and where evolutionarily you came from. I think the importance of us staying connected to the earth is that the earth evolves over time, and we all know that, and when we lose our connection to the earth and its chakras or energy systems or just being present on the earth, it's almost like we're evolving without being synchronistically with the earth. It's kind of we're evolving, even though man evolves at a much slower rate than the earth does. But so we may not see those effects, so, in our lifetime, but we are kind of evolving independent of the earth, which is basically so against nature, because originally we were so connected to the earth that we kind of evolved one with the earth. And that's the way it should have been, and that's the way it should be still. But our, let's say, urbanization,
Mhm.
and our lack of connection to the earth has kind of greatly affected that. So we become very disconnected to those earth's energy centers, to those earth chakras that may have. And what, that lack of connection, I believe, can cause imbalances within our own chakras. It's that lack of connection that we don't kind of coincide. And so it's estimated by 2050, 67% of the global population will live in cities and
Mm.
will not have direct contact without going and doing something like intentionally going to a park or spending time outside, which is a crazy number when compared to 1800. Only 3% of the global population actually lived in a city. So, as much as, our evolution or technology and all those different things are really great, we kind of still have to maintain or remember that we are beings of the earth, that we are really one with the earth. There is really no separation.
Mhm.
Our systems mirror each other. And that, our energy systems and our physiological systems mirror each other. This idea of, getting rid of waste and, growth and creativity and everything. The earth does all that. And we have to remember that, I think, in our, in our connection to the energy centers or to the energy or vibration of the earth.
It's funny how you mentioned two words, two or more words that are related to one of the articles that I wrote yesterday, and I released that about the evolution, about what makes us humans and not chimpanzees. That's the
Mm.
title of that article, because sometimes, well, nowadays more than ever, I see sometimes how people behave, and really they are just connected, glued to the screen many times, and not even watching what they are doing, if they are driving, if they are walking, if they are having a conversation with someone. They have that anxiety to have the phone in their hands, or to watch the phone. And evolution gave us 200 genes that are unique of our own species. And those genes are related to self-awareness, to creativity, to pro-social behavior, and to healthy longevity.
Mhm.
So those are four of the things that we are missing right now so much. And so much disconnection from those four things, and we have more genes than our counterparts of the primate kingdom. So using that kind of awareness, as both of you mentioned, of really relating to the weather, to the season, to the different sounds of animals that, of course, if we live in a city, is more difficult to find those sounds, but you can pay attention and listen to them still. And also having awareness of your own energy, how it changes and it varies across the different seasons, and that is going to give you creativity to schedule your day in a different way, because you will not be able to work in the same rhythm in spring or summer than in winter. So you should adjust also to the rhythm of those seasons to really take as much as possible of your energy and use that energy wisely. And socially, we are we are not going to survive if we don't really get together, help each other, and start understanding that this is not a race against anyone, and this is not a competition against any of us, in spite of the country that we live in spite of the nation, in spite of the language, in spite of anything. We are here together, and we are here together to bond and to create an expansion of knowledge, an expansion of things that we can really be much more. And I don't know the word that I would use. Enlighten, let's say, enlighten, to really help each other more and to help more people on the road. And by doing that, of course, that you are going to also increase your longevity. So it's about using that software that we have.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. Sharing is caring. That's what I'm hearing a lot of now. It's just, you're right, sharing that awareness. You talked about software, and what came to mind was sort of that first World Wide Web, if you will, actually is in terms of the ley lines on the earth, and how that was the interconnection between places, locations, people. People followed the ley lines, which are these invisible energetic lines. And so when you just spoke of, software, I said, it reminds me of just, there's nothing new under the sun. We've all heard that before, but it is true. The more and more that I learn, the more that I realize it's just a rediscovery. It's not new, it's just a rediscovery, right? And so when you think about that, it's so true. The intersections and interconnections that we all are, that inside, outside of our bodies, with each other, it's just wonderful to sit in that awareness. And David, you mentioned earlier mindfulness, being mindful of that, slowing down. What does that look like with collaborations, and just trying to further share the message about the limitless possibilities for everyone.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the idea and just the belief, and it has been the belief in almost every spiritual practice since the beginning of humankind, and that was the interconnectedness of all life. And we say that, and it's almost like, even myself at times, I say, and it's almost like with this element of disbelief, like I know it's true, but is it really true? And then looking at it even from a very scientific way, and the fact that, the iron that's in our blood that we use to carry oxygen, in our hemoglobin, is actually the iron that was created by the collision of stars. So technically, it's the same iron. It's no different. It's the same iron that's in my blood, is the same iron that's in yours. And basically, it all came from the stars. And that the oxygen that we breathe and the carbon dioxide that we give off is this constant mutual connection between ourselves, each other, and between the planet that we live on. I love this quote that I heard by Dr. Tom Chi. He says that your inhale is a plant's exhale, and that your exhale is a plant's inhale. And I remember when I first heard that, it was like wow. It was just like, the deer in the headlights look. It was just like, wow, that was like just amazing to me. But it also is your connection to all of, you realize how connected you are to all human beings and to all living beings
Yeah.
that inhabit our planet.
Yes. Yes. It's just being more adaptive to the circumstances, to to the things that are happening, because we are seeing big changes and really fast, that we are, sometimes we don't even perceive them, but the change is there, and suddenly we will have an artificial intelligence that will tell us pretty much everything. Right now it is really, really close to having a conversation. I was also watching yesterday an interview with the creator of ChatGPT, the OpenAI, the biggest platform, or the first platform that came from this artificial intelligence, and they were simulating a conversation between two AIs. So it is just like here we will be AIs speaking about chakras and wisdom of the earth. So this is what is coming, and these conversations, what I was, or some thought that stuck in my mind, and I kind of worry about that, is this artificial intelligence is being designed by, of course, by people that has an, let's say, an agenda, no,
Mm-hmm.
and they have now a regulation of things. So what about all the information that is being left out from this
Mm-hmm.
kind of artificial intelligence, such as these energetic fields and all of this spirituality that sometimes is not discussed? And sometimes when I ask a question to this artificial intelligence about anything that has to do with spirituality, chakras, energy, whatever, it has the legend below that says this is not proven, this is not scientific, this is this has to be taken, this has to be taken with care and not believe in. So I think that's not helpful for children, mostly when they use it, or for younger people, because your brain is not developed at the stage that you can discern
Mm-hmm.
what is real, what is true, and what is just being fed to you.
Mhm.
So how can we disconnect from those messages and connect back with our own wisdom in terms of energy?
Hmm. That's a great
Which
question. Go ahead, Jen.
I think of spending more time in nature is one of the ways that we can really maintain that connection. Um, I think of, things like grounding and maintaining that physical connection to the earth. I always said that I don't know that I actually sat on the ground or laid down on the ground since I was a kid until I practiced yoga, where it's part of your yoga practice, to actually get on the floor. And I was like, but how often do adults, I mean, kids probably more so, depending on their age, but how often do adults actually sit on the ground? And is that their preferred place of? And then the fact that we kind of take it even further, and most of us don't have any connection with the earth anymore because we wear shoes and we never have that strong feeling of the ground beneath our feet. And so I think keeping that connection with the earth and the earth's wisdom is becomes like even more important as we advance technologically and we make all these advances. And I'm not saying these advances are bad. I'm just saying that we have to remember what we came from, what we are, that we are the earth. And what better way than to actually spend time there, exposed to the ions that are in the soil. And it doesn't have to be grounding and walking on the earth. It could be things like gardening and just getting your hands deep in soil, or or something like meditating in a forest, which the Japanese call Shinrin-yoku, which is forest bathing. And so which is a mindfulness practice that takes place outside, so that your awareness and you're mindful of your surroundings. You're focusing on your breath. So just taking those points, I think, is going to become vital for us if we want to survive as a species.
Yeah, I agree.
It's beautiful, yes. What was coming to mind was everything beginning from awareness. We have to be aware of these subtle changes that are sort of bubbling up and taking over, David, as you mentioned, with this artificial intelligence, for example. And one of the things that I think about is when I was growing up, and I may have posted this, but it was more a sense of my mother not allowing us to be led and guided by television. I remember actually having to sneak and watch certain things that were popular during that time because it wasn't acceptable. She made us read. We were parts of the reading club at the library. Like we were really reared to go inward all the time. Meditation, she taught us how to meditate. I was sharing with someone the other day that, now all the rave is, for the copper instruments, the pyramids. I remember sitting and meditating in copper pyramids, in the 80s. So again, there's a rediscovery, a relearning of what is helpful to reconnect back to the self. And when we think about that, it's up to the wisdom keepers to share this on platforms such as this one. With Jan was with her nieces and nephews, being able to share with them, me being able to share with nieces and nephews and those that are still, the generations that are coming up, guiding them back to the wisdom of the earth, for example, and the interconnectedness of oneself. And if you're not able to, on a consistent basis, go within and to realize who you truly are, this divine spiritual being that has these energetic physical components, then I do think that we're in for quite a bit of a ride when it comes to what's in store from a technological standpoint. I also wanted to mention just the word artificial intelligence. It's not real. Artificial intelligence, and David, like you said, there are humans that are creating this artificial intelligence. And so we have to keep that in mind and, institute certain things where if you're sitting down for a meal, we're not bringing telephones to the table, or, maybe having a no tech hour, 2 or 3 hours before bed. Again, it's up to the sages, the wisdom keepers, the elders of these societies to help kind of usher in this reconnection back into ourselves. And if we don't do it, then who else is going to do it? So I would just suggest that and offer that we just, have that awareness within ourselves first, and then be able to model that and share that with those of us, with those around us, so that we can have sort of that impact of remembering who we really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Soulara, I love that. And part of what we were talking about is, I think of, yes, the wisdom keepers, the people who share and everything. And I do think that it does begin at home, especially with young children. I have friends who their houses are cell-free. They have a cell phone basket at the door. And when kids come over, they have to drop their phones in the cell phone basket, because she doesn't want she doesn't want to have her kids with other kids when they're all on their phones. She's like, you're together, you're supposed to be talking to each other or playing, or whatever, which I thought, and she, was one of my students, and she said that originally when she instituted that, she got a lot of kickback from the kids. The kids were really upset, but she was like, sorry, those are the rules of the house. And so it's, but her kids are not glued to their phones or technology. And I think the other day I was in the grocery store, and I'm watching this guy and his wife they had a little child that must have been 1.5 to 2 years old. And I had seen a kid the week before, about the same age, with a phone, with a tablet in the grocery store. And I was like, the kid's 2 years old with an electronic device. It just seemed so wrong to me. But I'm watching this little boy the other day, and he's like pulling off stuff off the shelves and everything, which, the parents were having to put back. But if you think about the interaction and how much children learn when they're actually not glued to a screen in front of them, tactile colors, they interact with people. So much of what is happening in the world is this lack of an ability to have a conversation. People don't actually know how to actually talk to each other and converse and things like that. And so, we have to remember that. And artificial intelligence is really easy. I mean, there's no interaction, no feedback. And, so it's very easy to get caught up on it because it's not going to tell you that you're wrong,
It's
Right.
not gonna challenge you in any way.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes, I agree, and it is funny that you mentioned that kind of dialogue that we have lost many times, because I also struggle sometimes to talk with people here in Mexico sometimes, because here it's not popular, these kind of things of spirituality, the things that are more, a little bit more advanced. So sometimes people just want to talk about politics or the weather or complaining about the school system or things like that, and I just really don't know, or get desperate a little bit to talk about those things. And I say, well, it is really sad that they don't read anything. They
Mm.
don't go beyond what the news is telling them, and they just believe everything that the news is telling, because that's the people that they want. People that just complain, people that just have this negative energy, and that's what is creating the chaos that we see everywhere in the world, because politics is everywhere and it's causing a mess everywhere. And I was just thinking that the more we read about things, the more we know, just, and it is not the the correct use of the word just, because it's our body is the most important thing that exists, and the connection and understanding where it comes from, are how those minerals assemble and create a protein and create then the cells and all of these compartments that we have inside. All of those things, for me, it's a must that children should have, and that's what I try to do sometimes with my daughter. I try to explain her about the science of things, and try to tell her, why do you think, question her, just to see what is the wisdom that she has. And sometimes she gives me very good answers without knowing or without reading, but just connecting with herself,
Mm.
connecting with her own body, and with what is, and just making that effort
Mhm.
of connecting these neurons is the self-awareness that we can create. No, when we ask big questions, is much better than giving answers. No.
Mhm.
Mm.
I love that. It's her inner wisdom that she is tuning into and sharing from that. That's awesome to just cultivate that. And you're right. Sometimes the question, well, not even sometimes, quite often, the question is more important than the answer.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as we talk about questions, I think that that's part of I want to say part of what's going on is the fact that that many people have forgotten how to ask the questions. And some of the most vital questions of like, how do I feel?
Yeah.
Um, you know, what's going on, for me today? And kind of ignore all those signs and signals. We kind of are robots going through our day, having a to-do list and knowing when we have to get accomplished. And, I'm guilty of that. I get very satisfied when I check off something on my to-do list, like, I'm human in that way. But I do ask those really, I think we have to start asking and retraining or helping people to ask those questions
Hmm.
and to actually look within to tap into that wisdom. And the first thing is awareness. And awareness is like, how do I feel today? Do I have energy? Am I tired? How did I sleep last night? You know, and start to ask those really important sort of basic questions, which we're almost trained not to ask. And we all know for multiple reasons.
Yeah, many times for
Absolutely.
politeness, that's what they say, but sometimes I don't like to be polite, and I like to ask questions. I like to ask questions, and I like to know about people, about their rituals, their habits, and why are they doing that? Because by questioning, I think that by questioning sometimes, why do you eat that way, or why don't you read more about this or that, or why don't you move your body in this way, whatever it is, you kind of leave something in the person that tells them, well, I could do that. No, maybe there is a better way of living than just as you mentioned, Jan. Sometimes we are uh, trapped in that hamster wheel and just checking boxes, but sometimes we have to pause
Mm.
and reflect and think and allow our bodies to tell us, well, this is not the day to check boxes. This is the
Mm-hmm.
day to rest. This is a day to just reconnect with you. And for
So
example,
true.
next week is my birthday, and
Oh, happy
usually,
birthday.
thank you.
Yes.
Usually near my birthday, I take 1 week off and I say I won't do anything. I just want to just let my body tell me what do you want to do. And if it's writing, I write. If it's reading, I read. Exercising is always in the mix because I
Mm-hmm.
love exercise. And but usually I just try to relax a little bit 1 week of the year in honor to my birthday. And I think that we also need to connect with that cycle of our life, you know.
As you said that, David, I was reminded of my favorite quote that I don't know, I think I said, I always say that I said it just because I wrote something, I wrote a blog about it, was the power is in the pause.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel. And they always say that around your birthday, you are the most connected to source that you will ever be, like you ever are throughout the year, because
Mhm.
that is the day, you were created. And so I've always learned to, like, according to a lot of Eastern modalities and traditional practices, that you're supposed to actually, like, surround yourself with really great, like, people that you really find, I don't know, like, enlivening, enriching. In general, I think you should do that anyway, because you should surround yourself with the people you want to be around, you know what I mean, that you want to become, but especially around that time, you should
Mhm.
take care. So I love that ritual that you have. I might
Yeah.
have to adopt that one.
I was sure thinking that, like, what does that look like? I Fortunately for me, my birthday is at the end of the year, and so I always tend to naturally do that. And I hadn't really put into sort of a ritual, so to speak, but I do feel that need to just kind of pull away. December 27th. I mean, literally, this is after Christmas. Here in the U.S., and it's heading on, into the end of the year. As far as the Roman calendar goes, and so yeah, there is that tendency to go within. Last month, last few days and reflection. What is it that I've accomplished this year? What didn't I accomplish, more importantly, and why? And how can I, make different strategies and follow through, or, what comes to mind when I sit with the essence of me, throughout that time. And so thank you for sharing that ritual. It's quite powerful, and definitely can be transformative, when you lean all the way into what it has to offer.
And I agree a lot with that. reflection of having just the people that nurture you around, in mostly in your birthday. And in unconsciously, I have always done that since I was very young or a child. I didn't like parties, surprise parties, because I didn't like to see someone that didn't vibrate with me. And I told my mother since a young age, I told her, don't do these parties because I wanna know who's gonna come,
Yeah,
and I wanna
yeah.
pick who's gonna come, because I was really selective, the kind of people that I was looking for. And I have always been like that, fortunately, because as you mentioned, there is a lot of people that just drains your energy and takes away your vibration. And if you let them, of course, and if you are surrounded by them. So I think that that would be a very good point of segue, so that we can grab this wisdom of the chakras, of the energy, of the connection with earth. So, Sulara, what can you tell people that they can do in order to flow better with their own chakras, with their own vibration and the earth?
Absolutely. It definitely starts with awareness. I was speaking with someone earlier today who needed to talk because they felt off within their body. They were having a difficult time letting go of some emotions. And I shared with them the first thing is to know that, to have that awareness, and to be open to what are the signals? What is the information that's coming through from this feeling that something is off or blocked or, not quite on that higher frequency that a person might be used to. And so, from a perspective of energy, and as, of course, a Reiki master teacher, I would offer Reiki. There's a lot that people can learn from what Reiki has to offer as far as releasing energies that are blocked in these chakras that we spoke of earlier. The chakras are related to certain aspects of mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical experiences that we may be having at the moment. And so talking with someone who has an awareness about these things can help to alleviate some of the confusion that someone might be feeling. Definitely experiencing a Reiki treatment if someone is open to that or wants to learn more about it. Sometimes people don't know enough about something and they'll say, oh, that's not for me. But then it's just because they don't know enough about it. And so it's always great to just, connect with someone who may know something that can be transformative. And so, again, we are energetic beings. We just cannot get around that. And so when you understand that, you begin to understand how important it is to keep your energetic vibration as high as you possibly can, and having the awareness, is it something that you're eating? Is it, as you mentioned, David and Jan, an environment that you might be in that's pulling and draining? Like, that awareness is key. Where is it coming from? What's the source? And speaking to someone who can help sort of walk you through that, talk you through that, and guide you into sort of a strategy of recovery. I experienced that for myself, working as a registered nurse for so many years. I had no idea about chakras and energy, but I knew that I could reclaim it. I just didn't know how. So I kind of went into this journey of what is this called? Because I didn't even know about Reiki as the word in and of itself. And so just experiencing such a heaviness and weightedness about going, into certain environments and all of that, I knew that there was a relief possible. So I would just say guidance and assistance in things such as energy centers, which are our chakras, and how to recover from that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What about you, Jan?
Um, I think that for me, it is that awareness and that quiet time within. It's, if you don't meditate or get quiet at some point during your day, I think it's a vital time. I think a lot of the time we are so out of touch with the way we feel. And getting quiet for a lot of people is very uncomfortable. We're not used to being in quiet. not being, not having something to distract us, having to be one, like up front with whatever it is that's going on with us. And we're very used to having things that distract us out of those experiences. And so taking that time, because I think sometimes we can't articulate the way we feel, but the more we sit with it and kind of digest it, the better able we are to articulate it. So then we can let it go. Like you, David, you said you love exercise and I think exercise is amazing because I think, for me, the practice of yoga, because I might not be able to articulate it, but I definitely know where it lives or I feel it in my body. And so a lot of times it's moving it through almost without me exactly being clear on what it is. What that it is just saying, okay, well, I feel something, and then I can actually articulate it. And sometimes that has to do with the energy centers of the chakras, because I notice what area of the body it's actually located in, and it gives me more information. And therefore, with more information, I'm more empowered because I can definitely feel that. And that's what I help people to do, to kind of experience that for themselves, to be able to move that energy or to articulate it, to be able to look for things like root causes and origins of things versus, just
taking a pill.
Yeah. And I know that for myself, having experienced many times, having a number of health issues myself, and then going and I'm saying, well, everything looks right. And you're like, yeah, but I don't feel well, or I don't feel optimally. And just going home feeling very dissatisfied just because you can't explain it necessarily, but it's off. And then I have other ways I guide people. I think that keeping that connection to nature, and a lot of us don't get to experience the outdoors as much as we want to, depending on where we live and climate, and also depending on job situations and other demands that we have. And so, I've done a lot of my practices incorporating essential oils because I get to bring nature into me. So when I can't go outside, I still get the smells of nature within my home or in my environment, and creating a space, where I live that is more sanctuary-like, and not just a dwelling.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Soulara, for this amazing conversation. I think that we are going to inspire people to reconnect with their own wisdom, with their own energy centers, and understanding that we are entering a new wave of energy, that we have to be ready and we have to be open just to have this spiritual path more in our awareness, let's say. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for connecting with the podcast. Of course, I always encourage you to give us your suggestions, your questions, your feedback about this information. And of course, I encourage that you share this information, because we need more people that create a different, natural intelligence that we are part of. So thank you, and we will listen to each other next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Thank
David.
you.